Oh my God, imagine that. Jihad and Minecraft is the same.
Well, someone who's educated.
But isn't it funny what you did there? Do you think Mein Kampf is bad or good?
I haven't read it. I can't comment.
So you're not sure if Hitler's manifesto is good or bad?
I haven't read it. I don't know.
Hitler's Mein Kampf. Yeah, I think we can all pretty much agree that Hitler's Mein Kampf is no good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. Ron DeSantis and CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, are going at it now. Not even like just in the courts, but also on social media. All right. Yesterday, Ron DeSantis ended up designating CARE, the Council for American Islamic Relations, as a foreign terror organization after months of looking into them. And Ronnie D and his supporters are standing by it, along with his legal counsel. They are prepared to take CARE head on. You're going to see what all of that jazz is about here in just a little bit. Of course, that's following Texas's designation of CARE as a foreign terror organization, and the United States is currently digging into the Muslim Brotherhood. Florida contests that CARE is associated with the Muslim Brotherhood, last I checked. So we're going to go dig into all of that. Also, we've got an issue with Somali gang rape. Not a joke, ladies and gentlemen, Somali gang rape. If I was to go over and reference Tim Walz, he just doesn't believe that, Somalis are an issue inside of the United States of America, particularly like any of their gangs, despite all of the video evidence like this of Somali gangs running around and taking over the United States.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. What I beat his ass. You want to beat his ass. You want to get him beat his ass. Oh my God.
Yeah. Just literally ripping it to freaking shreds. I don't understand how Tim Walz can sit there and take a look at it and say, you know what? No, we don't know about that. Wow, really? YouTube? Really? Wow, look at that. I just looked at what YouTube did, and it's pretty shady. Let's see here. Sarah Beimer ended up upgrading and becoming an ultimate true supporter. Thank you for your support, ma'am. And Knack Dad coming in, gifting out $1.99 as we get into the stories for the day. Now, yesterday, I went over a pretty ridiculous case of gang rapes that ended up taking place over inside of Minnesota. And it's pretty disturbing, the amount. I think it was 5 total victims just on this one guy's convictions that he ended up getting slapped for. But the disgusting part was that the Minnesota judges had kind of like let him run free until United States Attorney's Office ended up taking a look at it and then detaining the guy and running him down. His victims go as young as 15 years old. He had grabbed them, stalked them online, pulled them in, got him into his car. They had threatened to kill some of these ladies, put guns to their heads, told them if they didn't do what they were told, they were going to end up killing them. Again, one of these women is not even a woman. She was 15 years old at the time that this ended up happening. And all this by a Somali man. Now, when I say Somali gangs, I want to make sure that there's a distinct difference, because they haven't said that, these Somali gangs over in Minnesota are responsible for the Somali gang rape that took place over inside of this case. But it's pretty ridiculous when you start taking a look at some of the stuff that's going on. And some of it, you could look at and be like, well, it's just these different clans that are grouping together over there and running around and assaulting women. Or maybe it's just this bad group of friends. And that would be understandable, when we tend to look at these things, which is why I want to bring this video up right here. And they have gone from accusing Donald Trump of being a Nazi and everything else to now ethnic cleansing Somalians here in the United States.
I think it's time to start calling Trump's immigration agenda what it is: ethnic cleansing. I don't use that term lightly, because it describes the systematic effort to remove certain ethnic groups from the country with the explicit goal of making the population more racially homogenous. In this case, as white as possible.
I don't know about as wide as possible, but when we take a look at this and we say, is Trump getting rid of people from a particular country? Absolutely. When you have a country where 99% of the population, the female population, is subjected to female genital mutilation, and you have groups of men that are running around gang raping people, and they're also committing mass fraud, I think it's pretty reasonable for the American people to feel that way. Dylan McClung says, anyone else feel like they did 1,000 sit-ups last night after hearing all the descriptions of Omar's brother husband? Still hurting from the laughter. Oh, don't worry, Dylan. I'm going to touch on that today as well. So if you guys didn't get enough of like the laughter previously, you're going to get plenty of it today. That I can freaking freaking promise you, because we're going to touch back on Ilhan Omar and her ridiculous stuff as we go on this. But yeah, let's continue on with this nut job here.
But it's clearly not a label the Trump administration is afraid of, because lately they've been publicly embracing the term remigration or reverse migration, which is by definition a form of ethnic cleansing using mass deportation. Before Trump was even elected, Stephen Miller, who fits any definition of fascist, was throwing the term
Stephen Miller's a fascist. Oh, that's a good one.
Around on social media, but now it's being used by official government agencies. They proposed a new office at the State Department called the Office of Remigration.
Oh no, not the Office of Remigration. Again, you know, I'm starting to question whether or not ethnic cleansing in this sense that this guy is talking about is a bad thing. I mean, really. If we end up looking at this, and here's the deal though, it's not to just like get rid of, right? If we go back and we look at his definition that he ends up putting up on the screen, or forcibly displacement of persons belonging to particular ethnic groups. All right. So forcible displacement of persons belonging to particular ethnic groups. Well, yeah, we are forcibly displacing Somalians from the United States of America. And I don't think that's a bad thing, especially because they're here illegally. We are forcibly displacing illegal aliens from the country of Somalia, and you're going to label it ethnic cleansing, which, in my opinion, it does kind of fit that little bit of a definition. But you ended up highlighting attempt to create an ethnically homogenous geographic areas through the deportation. No. We're trying to clean out our damn country, but we are forcibly displacing persons belonging to a particular ethnic region because they are causing so many dang problems here in the United States of America. And so in that right, I do believe, yeah, you can look at it as ethnic cleansing. Fox McCloud says a population that was forced upon its people against their own will. Yeah, nailed it. You know, how many of these people that are over here, you know, on this side of the house that are currently up on the screen are upset with Israeli settlements in the West Bank? All right. So if you're upset about that, which Israel actually has a claim to that land, unlike the Somalis, right? Like they really do. They beat the hell out of Jordan and took Judea and Samaria. So if Israel actually has a claim to that land and these people are complaining about that, right, and the settlements, and I personally don't even agree with the settlements, but I understand why Israel does it, right? The Palestinian Authority is just garbage. But Somalis have no claim to the United States of America. They never went to war with us. They never beat another country back and held onto particular amounts of territory or anything like that. So yeah, we have to forcibly displace them because they came here illegally, and we are going after ones that belong to a particular ethnic group and or country because those people are committing massive amounts of crime here in the United States for the tiny fraction of a population that actually exists. That population is responsible for the largest welfare scam in history. The largest welfare scam in history. And according to the federal government, they're just getting started. We have just scratched the surface of this sucker. So why is it such a bad thing, in my opinion, to call it ethnic cleansing when in reality, maybe that is what we're doing. Maybe we are actually forcibly displacing these people from the United States of America and shoving them back to where they came from illegally.
Wasn't enough? Their actions in just the last couple of weeks make it unmistakable. Last week, Trump referred to Somalis, an entire ethnic group, as garbage and said, quote, "I don't want them in our country," all while
I don't want them in our country. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I've been to East Africa. I've spent time over there, and I don't want Somalis in our country. I'm going to be real with you. I don't want them here. I've seen how they live. I've seen how they treat each other. They are constantly at war. They have no real government, and they're constantly raping. They're constantly pillaging. They're ruled by warlords, for crying out loud. Like how those people are being like brought up in the world. Like, I mean, maybe if there was some sort of actual like integration program that they would be forced to go through if they wanted to come here to the United States, where they could actually like prove themselves as like stand-up citizens and we could properly screen them and all that stuff. But when it comes to illegal immigrants raping our citizens, no, they can get the hell out of Dodge.
his administration launches a targeted enforcement operation in Minnesota, focused entirely on Somali immigrants, 83% of whom are naturalized U.S. citizens. Trump,
which he can't really back up that figure of 83% of them being naturalized citizens, because that's only the people that are being documented. All of the undocumented people, i.e. the people that have been getting deported, we have no idea how many illegals are actually over inside of there. And I've never seen this guy's face before, but I saw that he accused the United States of ethnic cleansing. And I thought, you know what? I might actually want to listen to what this man has to say. And as it turns out, I actually agree with him. And I agree with the deportation and cleansing of them out of American society as long as they're illegal.
Has canceled protections for millions of immigrants from predominantly brown countries who are here legally, making them undocumented and forcing them into the shadows with the stroke of a pen. Meanwhile, he's granted refugee status to one group of immigrants, white South Africans called Afrikaners.
Ooh, yeah, maybe you should take a look into what the Afrikaners are actually putting up with over inside South Africa and how they literally are under the threat of death on a daily basis from a particular group over inside of their country to the point where they end up having to have actual fire drills all of the frickin' time for when they come over to actually ethnically cleanse them out of the country. You fricking moron.
Also vowed to denaturalize U.S. citizens who, quote, undermine domestic tranquility and deport people who his administration deem are, quote, non-compatible with Western civilization.
Yeah. Yeah, when you have mass rape, I would agree with that. When you have people that are defrauding the government, I agree with that. When you have politicians such as Ilhan Omar that's standing up stating, and don't worry, we're going to get there, that the Somalians here in the United States of America need to be controlling our political class. They don't have the best interest of the United States of America in mind, because the next point that she was making was that they're doing it for the benefit of Somalia. Not for America, not for the American people, but for Somalia. So yeah, you know what? In my opinion, the way this guy labels it and the way he lays it all out, I'm kind of okay when it comes down to ethnic cleansing being used in that right. And by the way, this isn't just a United States issue. Bristol over in the UK, 7 of these guys, 7 Somalis, all together grooming underage girls. And so you got to ask yourself, is this just an American issue or is this a Somali issue? Is this something that they actually have rooted within their society over inside of Somalia? Well, if we go and we take a look at the population, if we take a look at the crime, if we take a look at the gangs, if we take a look at the pirates, if we just take a look at how these people are freaking living on a daily basis, the answer is pretty common sense. But God forbid you bring up that common sense. Not everybody deserves to live in the United States of America. And when you have this group of individuals right over here that ended up going around grooming and raping underage women, well, why, oh, freaking why can't we bring that common sense back to the United States and say, we also have the same problem? I wonder if there's a correlation here. Fox McCloud says, how come there is no crying from the Korean Cubans play Vietnamese? How come there is no crying from the Koreans? Cubans play Vietnamese Ukrainian immigrants. I am very confused by what you just wrote, Fox. I'm not gonna lie, man, but I read it word for word, buddy. Maybe it's just because I'm live right now and I'm a little bit confused on what it is you're saying, but yeah, that's absolutely happening. And the fraud case is even more out of control than most of you guys even understand over inside of Minnesota. Meet
Ilhan Abukar. In 2021, she won the Outstanding Refugee Entrepreneurship Award from the Minnesota Department of Human Services. And in just a few years, her nonprofits generated over $5.7 million in revenue.
It's a lot
How
of money.
Amazing.
Good for
Today,
her.
she's a convicted felon who helped steal millions meant to feed hungry children. And her story perfectly illustrates Minnesota's fraud epidemic. So sit back and enjoy the unbelievable story of Ilhan Abukar. When COVID hit and government money started flowing from a fire hose, Ilhan saw an opportunity.
Yes, she did.
Signed up her nonprofit for Feeding Our Future, which we all now know for their $250 million fraud scheme. And from October 2020 to early 2022, she claimed that her sites in Bloomington, Minneapolis, Savage, St. Paul were feeding 5,000 or more kids daily. In reality, no sites actually existed, and the kids didn't exist either. Prosecutors say that she alone pocketed $5.7 million. Quite the entrepreneur, I would say. What did she do with the money? Well, she bought a 37-acre commercial property in Lakeville. She purchased a jet in Nairobi, Kenya, and she sent hundreds of thousands of dollars back overseas to who knows who. And to keep all this scam running smoothly, she gave $330,000 to a Feeding Our Future employee to make sure that her invoices sailed through. So she literally has no
employees. She's buying off people. And by the way, the people that ended up doing this whole like fraud scheme, when they were in court, actually ended up trying to bring a sack of cash over and buy off one of the jurors. Like that's how much money they ended up scamming out of the government. I want to see if he actually touches base. I forget if he touches base or not on what they actually spent the money on.
It gets worse. Her fraudulent company, DimeSpeak Enterprise, shared the same address as a childcare center run by her daughter, and one that recently had its license revoked for, you guessed it, fraud. In January 2025, Ayaan Abukar stood in federal court and pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Sentencing is still pending, but thankfully she faces years in prison. But this is not just one bad apple. Many of the defendants in Feeding Our Future have connections to fraudulent autism centers, just another fraud thing in Minnesota. We have seen massive fraud across our state in child care assistance, food for children, autism centers, and homelessness programs even. It's systemic. And
this man is not wrong as far as like how systemic this issue actually goes. And I do kind of like this comment right here from K Master. He says the solution is make all counties states in the U.S. Add more stars to the U.S. flag and give them the U.S. Constitution. I think you would actually see a completely and totally different United States of America. If you took, let's say, Western Oregon, for example, or I'm sorry, Eastern Oregon, that's been trying to like assimilate over into Idaho and like join that freaking crowd, right? Like they want to be absorbed into there. Instead of doing that, why don't you just cut them off and make them their own U.S. state, right? Like I actually kind of like that concept. I wouldn't say all counties that are here in the U.S. because that would get out of control. Too many driver's license, too many, like this, it would just be crazy. Right. But I do like the idea of taking a lot of these major Democrat ran places and being like, screw you, and be careful there, because additionally, as soon as you do that, you end up giving more senators and you end up creating more reps. You end up creating all of that crap that would end up going over. And so it might have other implications as well. But on a face value, like, yeah, I kind of like the idea that you're presenting there. Like, I don't think it's a bad concept. And I think it would end up solving a lot of problems. I think the reason we end up seeing a lot of this crap over here in the United States happens to be because we have so many, how do you want to say this? Policies that are being voted on, or legislation that's being voted on and being passed. I think maybe the first thing that we can do is just get rid of like the pork barrel spinning, right? Like stop attaching stupid things to other bills, like just to get votes. Like get rid of it. Stop doing that type of stuff. Yeah. And fraud, right? You want to hear more about the fraud? Because this is one of the main reasons, again, that I kind of support deporting all of these people as long as they're here illegally.
Bribery is a serious federal crime. An unknown woman showed up at the home of a juror.
That unknown woman, U.S. Attorney Andy Lugar says, is 31-year-old Ladin Ali. Ali and 4 men are now charged with a rare crime, corruptly influencing a juror.
Corruption of a jury through intimidation or bribery is a serious federal crime that carries a significant prison sentence.
In Lugar's press conference Wednesday, he highlighted how Ali flew to Minnesota from Seattle, where she also has ties.
Juror 52 leaving a parking ramp.
Lugar says Ali surveilled the youngest and only juror of color, following her home from the courthouse. Over 3 days, Ali allegedly drove by juror 52's Spring Lake Park home 19 times.
And this is the crazy thing to me, is this isn't just like they had somebody in the local area that came over and said, you know what, here's a bag of cash, right? Like if you could not do this, that would be great. They flew this woman in from Washington. She stalked them. Like this is way bigger than a couple of these companies doing something else. Like this is an entire like criminal organization, right? That's clearly multi-state, an entire criminal organization. Wait, there's more, because they didn't just go up to the juror and hand the juror the cash and ask the juror to like vote accordingly.
Map created by the FBI shows the amount of time Ali spent near the juror's home, according to her rental car's GPS data. Directed by 4 men, including 3 standing trial for stealing more than $40 million from the federal child nutrition program during the pandemic, the defendants are accused of a sophisticated plot to get to juror 52 with money. Then detailed instructions on how to convince the rest of the jury to vote not guilty, primarily by accusing the government of being racist against the Somali immigrants. After being
kind of weird, isn't it? The same way that they plan on like like the same narrative that you hear being pushed right now, accusing the government of being racist to Somali immigrants, is the same narrative that they were using trying to get off in this massive fraud scheme. It's kind of weird that we see those different connections, like Ilhan Omar married her brother and yet was also friends with a guy who told immigration authorities that he was married to his sister. It's almost like they just use the same narrative and just push it around.
Driven back to juror number 52's house by this man, Abdul Karim Farah, Ali is accused of bringing $120,000 cash to the door and promising juror 52's family member that more money would come after the not guilty verdict. A scene right out of a mob movie.
This is more than just a mob movie. This is a chilling attack on our system of justice.
Lugar stressed how rare the attempted bribe of a juror is nationwide.
Yeah, we know it is. Now, here's the messed up part about this, right? Like, not only do you have all of these billions of dollars that ended up happening from like these combined fraud schemes over inside of the state of Minnesota, but you ended up flying somebody in from out of state, this woman. Now, if she was just your average, and I want you to think with me, right? Think in the form of counterintelligence. They fly this woman all the way out from Washington State over to Minnesota. And she doesn't directly go up and hand cash. She stalks this person for days. And she doesn't approach that person directly because that would be too obvious. Instead, they go to a family member. And I would bet if we actually looked into the background of that family member of that particular juror, that maybe they were going through some financial hardships or something of that nature. See, what they ended up doing was not making this a sole decision of that juror. They likely knew that convincing one person might be a little bit hard. But when you end up reeling in a family member and giving them the money as well, telling them to deliver it to that juror, what you're actually doing is forcing multiple people to sit there and make that decision on the money. And that could be good or it can be bad. But either way, they knew to go over to a cousin's house and like stalk them as well and present the money. So you're flying people in from another state to stalk, to research and do background on family members, and then to provide detailed instructions that are oddly similar to the exact same narrative that is being pushed right now in order to deter American people from wanting to deport illegal aliens in the United States. This is far, far bigger than what it's made out to be inside of this news story. Far, far bigger.
Just doesn't happen in Minnesota.
In fact, KARE 11 News was only able to find one other documented case in our state in 1961 during an actual mob trial taking place in Minneapolis involving the Kid Can liquor syndicate.
He is the absolute most notorious mobster in Minnesota history.
Twin Cities filmmaker Michael Greenberg studied Isidore Kid Can Blumenfeld, hoping to turn his short film into a series.
In the 60s, obviously times had changed, and it was out of an act of desperation of trying to bribe somebody that they had no previous relationship with.
The mob bribe was unsuccessful, just like in the Feeding Our Future case. The judge in the Kid Can case called the attempted bribe an even more serious crime than the underlying liquor law trial. Lugar characterizes it as an assault on the integrity of the justice system.
There is no high.
And that is exactly how I see it. When you end up flying people in from out of state, and the same thing that they ended up saying in that the only other documented case of like bribing a juror that they were able to find in that state, that's a much bigger sign. And it's a much bigger case than the original one. Because what you have in this case in particular, in my opinion, is you have all sorts of weird stuff going on. And so I would I'm sure they are. And if they haven't, they most desperately need to do that, because that happened in 2024. Remember, that was underneath Joe Biden. Okay. And so like if it's underneath Joe Biden, we had corruption within our federal law enforcement agencies, and we had people that were attempting to hide and push certain narratives in order to keep people protected. And remember, at the time, that was June of 24. Remember who was coming out in June of 24 for running for vice president of the United States of America? Tim Walz. And so now you've got to ask yourself, why did they choose Timmy Boy to run for vice president? And in my opinion, it's probably because they had a bunch of dirt on him and that they could control him. And that is something that I think a lot of Americans need to be concerned with. All right. Like you can see Tim being controlled easily by like all these manipulative freaking people. And it's pretty sad. Now that is just the big overarching fraud that we see taking place, right? That's hip mainstream media, but there's also other ways they've been committing fraud and screwing over the American people. You ready?
Oh yeah, the Somalians have it figured out in Columbus. I went to the Walmart on Georgesville to see if I could see people filling their carts or just kind of see what I could see. It's not the way they do it. They've got it figured out way better than that. Every single Somali restaurant has a grocery store right next door or within eye shot of the restaurant. The specific one I went into today had it attached to the restaurant. And wow, what an adventure that was. Stay tuned for more on that. Anyways, the grocery store and the restaurant were the same building. So they don't have to go to a Walmart or a Sam's Club or a Costco necessarily. They can just order everything they need to their grocery store that's right next to or attached to the restaurant that they also own and never have to fill a single cart. And I guarantee you, if you looked at the records of those grocery stores, they lose tons of money every year, and it's probably used as a tax write-off because those groceries are being funneled into those restaurants, with a daycare center on the opposite side. And that's the common trend you'll see. There's restaurants, grocery stores, and daycare centers, and also home health care businesses. I can't forget the home health care businesses. Nakia was absolutely right. And the reason for the daycare centers I found out while I was at Walmart. 3/4 of the workers I saw working in Walmart, especially the cashiers, were Somali women. You got to figure if you have 2 or 3 wives that you don't have to claim, these women can go work at Walmart full time for $15 an hour and still qualify for food stamps as long as they have a couple kids, which you can guarantee you they at least have 2 kids. Hell, they average 7. Or same story as working as a home health care aide. They have most definitely figured out the system and how to take advantage.
Literally working the max amount that they can, like the right dollar amount in order to do that. And then still able to like get busy on the system in order to qualify for those different benefits. And then because they know the people that work at these different grocery stores because they work there, then you're able to get all of those things like shipped over to your store using your EBT cards and stuff, which you're just going to turn around and sell, right? So they're literally funding their business. What this guy is accusing them of is funding these businesses with EBT cards. That's what he's accusing them of. That like these restaurants and stuff like that they have, they're using them to buy produce from Walmart and other locations, having it sent to their restaurants, and then selling it to the people. And that's how these businesses allegedly are being ran. That's a freaking problem. And so I go back to the original statement that I ended up making, you know, when it came down to, you know, that guy's video that wanted to sit there and claim that, you know, we're ethnically cleansing people, right? This guy. Well, let's look at the culture as a whole. Let's see exactly what they're doing. Let's dig in pretty deep and determine whether or not their values actually like go with American values. Could you imagine if there was like a group of Jews that was doing this in the United States of America and how blatantly people would like blast out? People would lose their crap if there was a Jewish community that was using EBT cards to run like restaurants and frickin' sell kosher food to their people. They would snap. This thing would be all over CNN. They'd be digging up frickin' tunnels underneath these restaurants, connecting them to other locations. Candace Owens would be throwing a shit fit over this thing. And yet, because it's Somalis, we're ethnically cleansing them and we can't speak out against them. And I don't believe in looking at this. Like, I think what they tried to do was divide Americans. Like, that's my personal belief, right? Like when we look at like Nick Fuentes and all of that other crap and everything that's like coming out on him, which by the way, he doesn't have nearly as wide of support as you would think he would have, regardless of what people try to tell you. And so when we look at that, it's like they're trying to divide Americans. They're trying to say that like black Americans, white Americans, they're trying to like convince us that the Somalis are the African Americans. Like bull crap. No, they're Somalis. That place, East Africa, that is a different beast over there. And I don't think anybody here in the United States is comparing them to any of the people that have been like here in the United States for a long period of time, or have even migrated from other places in Africa, for crying out loud. Africans know how corrupt Africans are. I remember like bringing this up. Like, I can get a job in Africa because I'm a white guy. This isn't a joke. I got offered jobs while I was over in Africa because I'm white. And they think that like the Africans over there in East Africa are corrupt. And so they'll offer you a job as a white man because they figure, just like we thought about Donald Trump, that they can't buy you out, that you can't be bought by corruption. So they want you to run their different businesses and stuff. Like, that is how corrupt it is over there. Fox McCloud says, sorry, I'm at work, and voice to text likes to make me sound like I'm Somalian. What I meant is that people from other countries come here and flourish. Yeah, they do. They really do. You know, my family lineage, Polish and Italian, and also Ukrainian and Russian, right? Like that's the majority of it. And I do have like a small percentage that's from the Middle East, like African, over inside of Egypt, and then also like the Levant area, as it stretches all the way down like over towards Israel. But for the most part, that's like my lineage. And I know my family's history of being Italian coming over here in like the early 1900s and how they were treated. And if you guys don't know what the term WAP means, W-O-P, not the way Cardi B ends up, or W-A-P, the way Cardi B ends up using it, but like as it's used as a derogatory term towards Italians, like they used to have it pretty damn bad. And it's funny that people want to sit over here and pretend like it's not a thing. Like those Italian mobsters came out of somewhere. So I'm not going back to Italy because I love this country, but my people also didn't sit around, whine and complain and pretend like the world was out to get them. So let's see if we have any other cases of Somali fraud here in the United States of America.
I thought that we were doing the right thing this whole time. And the more I started digging, the more I started finding. And I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, that this was happening and that I was part of this.
Chris Bernardini spent 7 years working for Gateway Community Services, a Somali American-led health services contractor in Maine. Bernardini alleges Gateway oversaw a system in which false records were filed about client visits. And he says they charged taxpayers for providing services that were never performed.
We started getting some clients calling and saying, you know, months later that their client owed them hours. They hadn't come in for these shifts and stuff. But I had a time card for it.
And then they were billing for it.
They were billing for it.
In March of 2022, Gateway received a notice of violation from the state's Maine Care Services Program Integrity Unit based on an audit of records taken at random from January 2017 through December of 2018. Gateway overbilled by an estimated $904,000.
In your professional opinion, what you saw was fraud?
Absolute.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
But Bernardini says when the pandemic hit, it got worse.
I started seeing bonuses, $2,000 bonuses going to these staff that had only been with us for 2 weeks, never worked a shift with a client. And yet the PPP loan comes, you're giving $2,000 away like they're lollipops at a doctor's office.
In April.
Yeah, so for those of you that might not be keeping up right now, what ended up happening is the state ends up giving out grants for these private transportation companies to move disabled people around the state, get them to school and other things. And this guy ends up coming out and stating that, you know what, they were making all of this money, raking all of this money in, and he never really saw them move any people around, and the business itself was closed, and yet they still continue to get all of these state grants, which is very reminiscent of the Somali guy that I talked about yesterday that has his business that he was running out of freaking Somalia over here in the United States, and he was getting state-funded grants or state contracts at no contest to him. And he was using that to build up a Somali militia so he could run for president of freaking Somaliland something or other over inside of Somalia. Fox McCloud says Russia and Chinese spies commit less crimes than Somali and Afghan immigrants. It's scary, isn't it? And they're not even that big portion of a population.
Of 2024, Bernardini wrote to the Department of Homeland Security seeking whistleblower protection. They referred him back to the state of Maine.
Jeez,
Nearly
Abby.
a year later, Gateway fired Bernardini. The company's founder and CEO is Abdullahi Ali, a Somali American who, while at the time serving as executive director for Gateway, last year ran for president of Jubaland, a state in Somalia's south that borders Kenya. Last week, he posted on X, "I make no apologies for building a successful business in Maine, working hard to earn a living, earning my PhD, giving back to my Maine community, and running for office in Jubaland. I am proud to contribute my hard-earned dollars to support my people back home." We reached.
Proud to take my hard-earned dollars and support the people back home. They're not hard-earned. This guy flat out says it wasn't happening. And some of these like allotments that were coming in from the state, like that they were billing for, was upwards of like $3 to $3.5 million in like 1 year. Mary Dean says, "Thank you so much for covering my state of Minnesota. God bless you and appreciate you." Thank you very much, Mary Dean, for your support as I continue to switch over and focus more on U.S. issues. Fox McCloud says Russia and Chinese spies commit less crimes than Somali and Afghan immigrants. These are facts. It's freaking sad. Abby, I got my first ever bonus at 41 years old. WTF. Yeah, believe me, I understand that. Like, don't get me started. Tom Bone says, what is an acronym for without papers? The reason why it's most associated with Italians is because at the time, the majority of Italians that came into this country were without papers. Well, that was the slur that ended up like being used, calling them wops and everything, like dirty wops, right? So this isn't just like something that Americans, and I appreciate you for actually bringing that up and answering it like we were on Jeopardy, right? But the point being that Americans have always been against illegal immigration, and we've always pushed back hard against illegal immigration. And the only exception is right now in the United States when we have this weird socialist movement, all right, and this weird, like really far-leaning liberal like movement of like going after everybody that loves their country. It's freaking disgusting. And we have people that, again, like this guy running for president in another country, sounds like he's defrauding the government quite a bit, like to the tunes of millions, raising a militia in another country while running for president.
Out to Ali for comment multiple times. We even came to Gateway to try and speak with him.
Hello, I'm with News Nation. My name is... No comment? Is Mr. Ali here? Can we speak with Mr. Ali?
Republican State Senator Matt Harrington has called on Governor Janet Mills to investigate.
It's just an absolute insult to the Maine taxpayer. That we know that there's this Medicaid fraud going on by Gateway Community Services. We're seeing nothing from the Mills administration on this, and I think it's appalling.
I still can't believe it. I still can't believe I took so much of my time and put so much of my life into this agency that just tossed me aside. It's caused me to
Yeah, it sucks, man. Pat Loud says, why do I have a feeling this is happening in multiple states, not just Somali soda? Well, I just showed you two other states. I showed you Ohio and I showed you Maine. And we know that that woman that came over and tried to buy the jurors flew in from Washington State. So it's not just happening in Minnesota or Somali soda, as you so probably appropriately called it, to be honest with you. Because if they make up such a tiny portion of the population, why do we have, like police officers and things like that, and these statements that are being put out in Somali language? Why do we have the mayor that's speaking that? Why do we have all of this happening if there's such a small portion of the population? That doesn't make sense to me. That seems like there's a hell of a lot more of them than they actually care to admit to. Trump's doubling down on his statements that he doesn't want that trash here in this country.
I want to see people that contribute. I don't want to see Somalia. I don't want to see a woman that, marries her brother to get in and then becomes a congressman, does nothing but complain. All she does is complain, and yet her country's a mess. It's one of the worst in the world. Let her go back, fix up her own country. Somalia, yeah, and I was right about it. I started complaining about Somalia long before the scandal. The horrible things they're doing to Minnesota, it's incredible. They have an incompetent governor there, too. The Democrats are running some bad ships. I want to see people that contribute.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Bringing up that she married her brother, Ilhan Omar has been like going off. Why is it that like he is so obsessed with me and losing her freaking mind over that? But let's take a look at why some people might be upset with Ilhan Omar, and why we don't think that her policies or the policies of the Somali people here in the United States are exactly in America's best interest, which goes all the way back to talking about why they should be deported and denaturalized and sent back to where they came from. Because in order to be a U.S. citizen, you're swearing allegiance to the U.S. Constitution. That you love this country. You are looking out for the United States first. When you come here to this country and you become a U.S. citizen, you leave all of your other trash behind. You no longer have allegiance to that country. That's how it's supposed to be. And so if we find out differently, i.e. you lied on your oath, just because you said the words and you stood there doesn't mean that you have the best interest of this country in mind. And if we catch you, your butt needs to get deported. Petty Eddie says, the question is, what can we do? In my opinion, the U.S. is already on the downside of the mountain. Do we have enough true Americans to reverse this problem? Yes, we do. We have plenty of true Americans to reverse this problem. When you go over to social media, what you're seeing, and this was proven with Nick Fuentes, in my opinion, via Data Republican, that you have all of these foreign influential people that are coming in and pushing divide in this country. And they're pushing accounts, they're pushing leftist agenda. If you go over to TikTok, if you go over to Twitter, if you go over to Instagram, if you go to any of these different social media sites, what you are going to see is you're going to see a bunch of left-leaning content that is currently being pushed. And we know we have foreign bot engagement. We know we had foreign accounts, at least over on Twitter, that were pretending to be American, pretending to be on one side of the aisle. That's why it looks that way. But the vast majority of Americans, when polled, agree with this. They don't want these people in our country. Listen to what she says here. My answer to Somalians was that the U.S. government will only do what Somalians in the U.S. tell them to do. They will do what we want and nothing else. They must follow our orders, and that is how we will safeguard the interest of Somalia. This is Ilhan Omar.
abteeda waxay ahayd dawladda Mareykanka waxay ka qabanaysaa wixii anaga aan dhahno dawladda Mareykanka qabo waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno anaga Soomaali hadii aan nahay wadankan anaga ku nool wadankan wadankii aan anaga tax ka dhiibno waaye waa wadankii gabar idinka dhalatayne ee Congress ka fadhiso.
The U.S. is a country where one of your daughters is in Congress to represent your interests. And she's talking about the Somalis taking control and looking out for the best interest of Somalia. Now, this little speech that she ended up giving back in 2024 is what ended up like opening up the frickin' basket on her, right? And again, you have Somalis that are cheering her on for giving such a horrendous speech. And you're right. We don't want these people here in the United States of America. We absolutely don't. Hell, what's her name? Katie Miller. She is the wife of Stephen Miller. She says that Ilhan Omar is actually trying to get her killed.
All right, here to respond, Stephen Miller's wife, the host of the hit Katie Miller podcast. Katie Miller's with us. So she's saying the First Amendment rights are eroding as she's calling your husband a Nazi. Maybe you can help me out with that one.
Every time Ilhan Omar speaks, we are all reminded how the Somali refugee experiment in our country has failed, whether that's scamming Americans out of $1 billion or sending $1.7 billion annually in remittances to Somalia, or the fact that 37% of Somalians in Minnesota can't speak English, Sean. These aren't people who want to assimilate or love our country, and as a reminder, they're free to go home. When Ilhan Omar uses that rhetoric of saying white nationalist and Nazi, what she's trying to do is incite violence and incite someone to murder my husband in all sincerity. That's what people are trying to do. It's no better than someone taking a gun and trying to shoot President Trump and Butler.
I don't think she's wrong. I don't think she's wrong. We saw it when Trump, like the first assassination attempt on Trump back in July of 24 ended up taking place. We saw the amount of people that were celebrating over Charlie Kirk. And the same rhetoric that they were using against Charlie Kirk is the same rhetoric that they use against Donald Trump. And it's the same rhetoric that they use against any of us that end up speaking out against this madness. All of a sudden, we're racist. All of a sudden, we're like xenophobic. We have all of these other issues, right? When we want people that love America to be inside of the United States, and only those people that actually love America do we want to live inside of the United States. And if you bring that up, despite the fact that Ilhan Omar is sitting there saying that quite literally, their interests are not in the best interest of the United States of America, that they are looking out for Somalia, that they are sending money over there, that they're trying to take care of those people. And when we speak up against that, all of a sudden we have problems. We're Nazis. We're trying to boot people out of the country. I don't support Nazis. I don't support racism. I don't support any of that garbage. But I recognize trash when I see it. And feel free to travel to East Africa if you don't believe me and take a look at Somalia and see what it looks like, if you've even got the balls to go in there. Place is garbage. The entire Horn of Africa is garbage. I am convinced that when God created the universe, he took all of his leftovers and he dumped them over there. And it was never intended, never, ever, ever intended to be like filled with a population. And the population that lives there is absolutely miserable. And I couldn't help but notice a pattern from my time in the military, traveling around the Middle East and the rest of the world. It seems like people that live in miserable locations end up being rotten, miserable people. And in order for them to make themselves feel better, they've got to blame somebody else, and they've got to inflict pain and hurt on those other people in order to make it happen. Well, I don't want that in this country. I don't. I really, really don't. I don't want people like Ilhan Omar. I don't want people like all of this crap. And then the question comes down, and I ended up showing these photographs last night. You know what? I've got just much better shots I ended up taking of this that I ended up sharing. We're talking about Ilhan Omar. We're talking about all this stuff going on. And then there is her brother. This is the man that she married, by the way, that they're accusing of being her brother. And I brought this up yesterday, and we had a great time last night coming up with nicknames for this guy. If it's not her brother, the guy's gay as AIDS. Like, there's no getting around that. Like, if he's not gay, boy, do I have questions. Boy, oh boy, do I have questions. If she didn't commit fraud because, I don't know, she married her brother, she probably committed fraud because she married a man that didn't want to have sex with women, that was only interested in men. Look at this. This, again, is the husband, former husband of a United States rep that's accused of being her brother. John Wilson, holy cow, brother, thank you. He says, my roommate, Jake, could really use some prayers right now. His uncle was limelight to Omaha after something ruptured in his stomach. Really? He became septic very quick and was taken off life support on Sunday and is just slowly fading until he finally passes. Oh, John. That's rough, dude. That's rough. Father God, we come to you and we ask you to look over John's roommate who's fallen ill. We ask that you relieve any pain that he has, relieve any pain in his family, relieve any pain that anybody's feeling right now in this very moment. And we ask that you look over him. And we ask that you accept him as one of your followers and one of your believers when he comes to pass. And we've also seen you conduct miracles here on earth. And if you could, Lord, and grant him more time with us, we would greatly appreciate it. At the end of the day, Father God, like, may your will be done, but please ease the pain and suffering that goes into this. Amen. Dude, I'm sorry to hear that, John, man. That sucks. That sucks. I remember talking about that. That's horrible. How come nobody's... dude, that's rough, man. I'm sorry to hear that, John. Prayers, buddy. Pat Loudon says, the people that preach Israel has too much influence in our politics, just as loud about what the Somalians are preaching. Yeah, so that's my opinion, right? The same people that are complaining about AIPAC are the same exact people that are not complaining about the Somalians here in the United States and that are covering it up and lying about it. It's absolutely disgusting. Adam DLC says, slowly you're starting to sound like Fuentes. No, I'm not Nick Fuentes. I'm nothing even remotely close to them. But what I am doing is pointing out very obvious facts of fraud here within the United States government. I don't idolize Hitler. I don't think Hitler was a good man. And I don't believe the white race is being washed out or anything like that. If you're white and you want to have babies, have babies. If you don't, I don't care. I'm of the belief that eventually we're all going to end up being mixed together. If you are a believer in pure blood pollution, good on you, man. It's not my thing. I don't believe in it either. So if that's your take, then run after it, right? Do your thing, do your part to it. But it's not the fault of these people. It's the fault of everybody else. So no, I'm not a Nick Fuentes. I just want what's best for this country. And what's best for this country isn't having gay people marry future representatives who then go on to defraud the American people working in a massive scheme. I don't agree with that. Jonathan Wilson says, life lightened. Life flighted. Dylan McClung says, prayers right now for Jake from all of the bananas. Lord be with Jake, his family, and everyone around him. Comfort them and place your loving arms around him. Amen. Dude, it's getting rough out there, ladies and gentlemen. Synonymous 80. Remember to lube your EDC with bacon grease. Well, I don't know about bacon grease, man. I don't know about bacon grease, but I do know that I'm tired of all of that happening. And you know, they're complaining about these illegals. So let's take a look at who some of these illegals are that we end up having here. Abdikar Abdi, all right, an illegal alien from Somalia, former member of the Gangster Disciples. If y'all don't know who that is, you need to look them up. They're not exactly great people. And then he's a vice lord. He's also been convicted of fraud, receiving stolen property. All these people are the ones that are getting ripped out of Minnesota, by the way. I'm not showing you any other people than the ones that got ripped out of Minnesota. Sahal Shidan, criminal illegal alien from Somalia, was convicted of criminal sexual conduct with a minor aged 13 to 15. Yep, he can probably go. Mukhtar Ali, a criminal alien from Somalia, was convicted of assault, fraud, robbery, and larceny. Ahmed Saeed, a criminal illegal alien from Somalia, was convicted of multiple crimes, including, 2 domestic violence convictions, 3 convictions of driving under influence, assault, damaging property, and violating probation. Now, here's the next question. How come the Minnesota government is just pandering to the Somalians when you have Hispanics that are also getting ripped off the street as well? How come you don't hear any mention of them from the pandering Minnesota government? Rudy Girillo, a criminal illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of felony smuggling of aliens. Alvaro Elenis from Mexico, aggravated assault with a weapon. Then we've got this guy, another criminal illegal alien from Somalia, charged with 2 counts of domestic violence. Here's another guy, Oscar Ocampo from Mexico, domestic violence. Alberto Montiel, DUI. Not a good guy to have around. Ismael Avelos from Mexico. You've got more Mexicans up on the screen right now than you do Somalians in El Salvador, if not 50-50. And yet we don't hear the Minnesota government complaining about the deportation of Mexicans and Salvadorians over there, right? You guys wondering if it's a problem around the United States, if Somalians are doing good things? Well, let's take a look at this Somalian over inside of LAX and what just a lovely job he did as a truck driver. I wonder if maybe the good government of California decided that this man deserved a CDL.
How are you going to be paying? How are you going to be paying? Send me the money. Can I send you money? What did he say? First time I see an Amazon trailer trying to make a delivery here in LAX. If you guys are familiar with the area, this is pretty much where the arrival's at. The delivery driver, who said he's from Somalia, said that the delivery is here at LAX. What we can see over there in the distance, that's where the arrival's at for the passengers. The location to delivery is look at sure. I'm the captain. Why'd you go this way then? Huh? Why'd you go this way? You know the Garmin. Your GPS? The GPS Garmin. Yeah, it's just tell me to use this way. Oh, to go through the arrivals? Yeah.
Okay, now you get it. He screwed up bad, right? Let's take a look at how badly this man screwed up. Pretty bad. Sensational. Yep, these are the guys that we want to have in our country.
Talk with his rim. Flat. And he tore off all his lines here.
You want to know why people are getting killed in the United States of America? Like, this is why. This is why people are getting killed by commercial drivers. This is also why I'm going to be partnering with that sheriff's department, and I'll be bringing you guys an exclusive report watching the sheriff and all of his deputies alongside federal agents busting illegal aliens driving trucks in the very near future. Operation ended up getting pushed back, and obviously for the safety of when it's going to be taking place, I'm not going to be announcing when it is because I don't want any illegals to know when and where it's going down, but for the love of God, it's going to be epic when it ends up happening. Screw these people that are out there killing Americans that have no business driving trucks, and screw the politicians that end up giving them driver's licenses and CDLs and real IDs here in the United States, and screw the people that are creating these sanctuary cities, forcing or creating, if you will, this black market for illegal immigration that's getting women and children human trafficked, raped, and shoved into forced labor here in the United States of America. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is where I'm going to differ when you start talking about Nick Fuentes and everybody else, where I actually do care about people, but I also understand that there is a hell of a lot more issues that end up taking place when you start bringing up the black market and this human smuggling that goes into illegal immigration here in the United States of America. And it's something that not a single one of these Democratic politicians want to touch on. They claim to care about these people, but they don't want to talk about the human trafficking and the sex trafficking and the forced labor that ends up going into all of it in the market that they're creating. Not to mention the good people around the frickin' world that can actually take care of this. Now, yesterday, Ron DeSantis, old Ronnie D, ended up coming out and declaring that CARE was a foreign terror organization alongside of the Muslim Brotherhood. CARE is a little bit upset about this, and they are now threatening and basically guaranteeing that they're going to sue Ron DeSantis. The Florida chapter of the national headquarters of the Council on American Islamic Relations, the nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization, today announced that they plan to file a lawsuit against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in response to his defamatory and unconstitutional order baselessly smearing the group as a foreign terror organization. Well, it's about dang time. And Ronnie D ain't backing down. If you take a look at him, he just flat out came out over on X and he said, I look forward to discovery, especially the CARE finances should be illuminating. Now, they are honestly going to be digging in really, really hard. And I think Texas is also looking forward to that as well, of just digging straight into all of their crap. Holy crap, John. Dude, calm down over there, man. Stop flexing your Bitcoin. John says, thank you, Matt, for not only your coverage of everything, but for continually showing your faith and caring about all of us here listening and watching. You truly are one of God's strongest soldiers to me. Your words and prayers have helped me through tough times on more than one occasion. Dude, thank you. That actually means a lot. I remember sitting here 2 years ago, probably contemplating whether or not I was going to come out with my faith and actually talk about that stuff. And I was just moved one day in order to do that. And I think it's one of those things that I should do more often. And I am quite vocal about, even though I don't bring it up on a daily basis. I'm trying to do better about those things, but it was one of those things that bothered me when I first brought it up, not for a reason of anything other than thinking that, well, maybe, just maybe, I'm going to end up getting bastard slammed or pulled into the group of people that is only doing what he's doing because of his religious convictions. No, it's based on truth and it's based on facts. And it just so happens my religion happens to align with those truth and those facts. Right. So it's kind of crazy. Yeah. CARE. Why are they such an issue? So on top of CARE coming out and doing that, they're going back and forth. And I actually thought I had more of these things up here. Oh yeah, look at that. I do. Here's another one. And there it is again. So CARE National ended up coming out with a huge statement. It says, from the very moment Governor Ron DeSantis took office, he served the Israeli government instead of the people of Florida. He hosted his first official cabinet meeting in Israel. He diverted millions of Florida tax dollars to the Israeli government in bonds. He threatened to shut down every Florida college's pro-Palestinian student groups, only to back off when CARE sued him in federal court. Now he wants to smear CARE Florida. Unfortunately for Mr. DeSantis, none of his political stunts will work. He has been publicly irrelevant ever since Donald Trump handed him a humiliating defeat on the campaign trail. We will do the same for Mr. DeSantis in a court of law, God willing. See you soon there, Ron. We hope you have better lawyers than Greg Abbott in Texas. By the looks of your probably false and clearly unconstitutional proclamation, you're going to need them. And then they ended up releasing a full statement along with a picture of Ron DeSantis and what's his name? Benjamin Netanyahu, old BB, saying, CARE Florida tells Ron DeSantis, see you in court, right? Ends up good for you guys for coming out with that. But at the end of the day, they couldn't come back at Ron DeSantis without bringing Israel into it, which in my opinion shows you CARE's true agenda over here. Dylan says, is it me or could Omar's husband/brother be great fit for the J6 pipe bomber? Seems to fit the criteria for his online name. No, I don't think he's a great fit. And this is something that we're going to be talking about tomorrow morning. And I want to remind you guys, I'm bringing BX on X over here to actually talk about this. She's done a lot of work on this case in particular, along with the accelerationism of people online. Her and I are in agreement for the most part that we do believe that there is a high probability that the J6 pipe bomber was likely accelerated or, online, like that people got a hold of him and ended up pushing that stuff upon him, despite a lot of the other crap that's out there. One of the guys that's pushing a narrative that there's no way that this autistic guy could have done it as if he's mentally retarded is just simply not the case. Like, he's functioning autistic. According to his grandmother, he's got the mind of a 16-year-old, and we'll get into all that tomorrow. I'm going to get into all that tomorrow and how all of that stuff actually flows out. And then CARE National. Here's the thing, Ron DeSantis, unlike you and other AIPAC service, we do not take money from any foreign interests, nor do we serve any foreign powers. We rely on the American people for support, and we answer to the American people as we defend their rights from anti-Muslim bigots and Israeli first politicians like you. Again, got to bring Israel into the frickin' mix. We will soon, God willing, see you in court where facts still matter and the law is on our side. And that is their response to Ron coming out saying that he looks forward to discovery. So CARE is opening up a whole can of worms with this, an entire can of worms. And I guarantee you, because I've seen his state's attorney general come out and actually state a response to CARE as well, that this looks like Florida is multiple steps ahead. I'm pretty sure Florida wanted CARE to sue them. And truthfully, whatever ends up coming out of this, whatever Florida ends up finding, you got to remember, if Florida does find actual truth that the Muslim Brotherhood is behind CARE, you got to remember that the United States government is currently looking at the Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terror organization in multiple chapters of it. And if Ron DeSantis and his legal team end up discovering that CARE is involved with the Muslim Brotherhood, and they pass that information off to the feds, which guaranteed they will. It wouldn't surprise me if they were working together on this in order to pull more information out of it. Well, they're SOL. CARE is about to get kicked out of the United States of America. All of their money would end up getting seized. They would be screwed from the moment they're designated a foreign terror organization here in the United States of America. And they are involved in so much dirty and shady stuff. Personally, I think it would be good. Rare Foundation actually ended up putting this out. This would be from Amy Meck. And she has so much stuff that ends up like going into this. And if you guys really want to read up on it, slowly running out of time right now, she does a great job in her previous investigations connecting CARE to the Muslim Brotherhood. It's absolutely amazing. So I think maybe Ron DeSantis may have been working with Amy Meck on some of this stuff, because it almost looks like she had all of this crap like prepared and ready to like bump out. And I mean, you look at it all and everything that they have. Rare will now push for full audits of Brotherhood-linked Islamic schools, the end of taxpayer funding for Sharia-run institutions, the repeal of the Muslim Heritage Month in Florida, deep investigations into CARE's political and financial influence, and complete removal of CARE from all Florida government partnerships and engagement. They're going to town on CARE, and I think CARE is going to end up getting the boot in the very near future, and I kind of look forward to it. And then, of course, CARE's executive director ends up coming out just the other day and speaking against what's taking place in Minnesota.
We're waiting to hear more from the Trump administration about its targeted immigration operations in Minnesota. That's after people in handcuffs were spotted boarding a chartered plane at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport on Friday. Flight data shows the aircraft came from a Louisiana airport involved in deportation operations. Joining me now to discuss is Jaylani Hussein, the executive director of the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, also known as CARE. Thank you for being with me. Let me start here with what you know about the footprint of this ICE operation, what you're hearing from people, obviously the largest Somali American community in the country.
Yeah, thank you for having me. We knew coming into this operation that they would actually be harassing U.S. citizens, since we know majority of Somali Americans are citizens. In fact, the majority of the population is actually born in the United States.
There is no way he could know that. That's why they call themselves undocumented, because there's no documents on these people. We don't know where they came from. We don't know how they got here. We don't even know the actual size of the Somali population over in the state of Minnesota, because they are quite literally, you have undocumented people. Now, there is a lot of legal U.S. residents and U.S. citizens over there that are Somali. But I just showed you all of the arrest records for the worst of the worst that ICE ended up putting out, or DHS ended up putting out, showing just as many Hispanic as frickin' Somalis that ended up getting arrested and taken out. But you don't hear this man talking about it. Instead, he comes over and he tries telling you that they're all here legally. He doesn't want to bring up the fact that over 75% of them are on welfare. He doesn't want to touch base on any of that. Instead, he wants to tell you that, you know what, they're just good-hearted Americans and that they're racially profiling these people and they're going after them.
And so we knew that was going to happen. We heard officially 5 Somali Americans have been put into this process only after, I think, nearly a week of this operation. And, we know for sure that this is something that will continue because of the fact that most Americans obviously are not aware of this, but the majority of Somali Americans are actually undocumented.
Oh, was that a fraudulent slip? The majority of Somalian Americans are undocumented. Yeah. And he calls them Somali Americans, where you don't end up entering the immigration system if you're an American. You end up getting your ass in hot water when you're here illegally. Illegally.
documented and U.S. citizens. And so that's why it's failing miserably. We've also heard on the ground that people are being injured. We had a report of a Somali woman that was sexually assaulted by ICE agents who is a U.S. citizen. And so exactly what we predicted is happening right now.
No, she claimed that she was sexually assaulted. And any of you guys that have taken part in law enforcement activities know what that looks like, right? You know how to properly conduct a pat down and all of that other crap. You want to hear about some of the complaints that they are actually taking on over there? Here, let's hear one such complaint that CARE's backing.
Traumatized and feeling numb and detached.
40-year-old Helena Bowe not happy that Ferndale police made her remove her hijab, her religious head covering, while booking her after a traffic stop on June 21st of this year.
She had to take off her hijab for her booking photo. That's what she's upset about. That's what CARE's backing. Crap like this. This apparently is way too much. This is oppressing the people to get an actual photograph for her booking photo.
Muslim, so it's very important that I wear hijab. It's like a form of worship for me. Like I'm constantly in worship to my Creator.
And now she wants Ferndale police to pay her $250,000.
Our client's rights were violated by having her picture taken without her hijab.
In a statement, Ferndale police say that Ms. Bowe was stopped on 8 Mile for having a fraudulent license plate. During the stop, she admitted
a fraudulent license plate. Could be a stolen car, could be a stolen plate. It could be that she didn't register her vehicle. It could be all sorts of random different things for a reason she would have a fraudulent license plate on her car. It could be she's out committing other crimes with a fraudulent plate on her car so that her actual license plate doesn't actually fall into it. All of these are things I ended up discovering when I was in law enforcement. A fraudulent plate could be attached to a lot of crap. And just because you're wearing a hijab doesn't mean that you don't get your booking photo taken like every single other person in the United States of America that ends up getting arrested, especially when you have a fraudulent plate. People with fraudulent plates end up getting connected to all sorts of different crime. So for this woman to sit here and complain that they ended up making like an actual take a face shot of her, you know why? Because those profile shots are actually way more valuable than anything else. Do you know that? It's not the head-on shots, it's the profiles, right, that end up coming in. And so, yeah, you've got to take your hijab off so they can get a full profile, so that they can get a full freaking picture, because God forbid there's some surveillance video of a fraudulent plate that's a partial match to yours with the same vehicle match description, and they have a crap picture of a suspect that they're trying to look and match. Yeah, lady, your hijab is going to come off.
To having a taser, but when officers searched her car, she actually had a stun gun, which is illegal in Michigan. She was arrested and taken to the Ferndale Police Department.
We traumatized.
So then she had an illegal weapon on her as well for over inside the state. I think all of those are pretty valid reasons why you would end up demanding it take off. But CARE's parading around on CNN, complaining and acting like they're a bunch of victims, and that's the type of stuff that they actually end up going after. This is probably one of my favorite things that's about to get reversed. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on like 1.5 speed so you guys listen to it a little bit more. Birthright citizenship is about to be heard in the Supreme Court. For those of you that don't know. And as I brought up like over on one of my other debates the other day, when you take a look at what the law says, you have the letter of the law, and then you have the spirit of the law. What you're about to hear is an argument for the spirit of the law when it pertains to the 14th Amendment.
In the war room, we're going to hit Mike Davis real quick, but then we're going to go back to Brianna. Mike Davis, there's some movement on all things SCOTUS and birthright citizenship. You had a great piece in Fox a few months back, and it seems like that might be coming to fruition, or at least the chance for it to be coming to fruition. Can you walk us through the latest?
Yeah, this is one of the most crucial decisions that the Supreme Court will decide this upcoming term, and it's the issue of birthright citizenship. On January 20th of this year, President Trump's first day in office, he signed an executive order ordering his government to not automatically grant birthright citizenship to people who are born in the United States. That is a misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment. After the Civil War, we had the Civil War amendments, the 13th Amendment to free the slaves, the 14th Amendment to provide equal protection and due process to the freed slaves, and the 15th Amendment to provide voting rights to the freed black male slaves. That was extended to women with the 19th Amendment. But as part of the 14th Amendment, the ratifiers wanted to guarantee birthright citizenship to the children of the freed slaves. So there's the birthright citizenship provision in the 14th Amendment, which says that the children born to people subject to the jurisdiction of the United States have birthright citizenship. And there is a clear legal meaning. If you looked at the text and the original public meaning of subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, that means people who are loyal to the United States. So people, for example,
think about that. And then think about all the previous stuff that I showed you today where he says people that are loyal to the United States, not loyal to Somalia, not loyal to Mexico, not coming into the United States illegally, having a freaking anchor baby, and then working a job and sending your money back to Mexico and voting for like things that make your country, like your home country, a hell of a lot better. No, loyal to the United States.
Foreign ambassadors' kids do not get birthright citizenship. Foreign armies' kids would not get birthright citizenship. Do we think that foreign terrorist kids would get birthright citizenship? Birthright citizenship did not even apply to the children of American Indians under the 14th Amendment. Bingo. There is a Supreme Court ruling on that from over 100 years ago. So Congress extended birthright citizenship to the children of American Indians by statutes. So you have to answer this dispositive question for the Supreme Court. If American Indians' children did not have birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, why the hell would the children of illegal aliens? They just don't. If Congress wants to extend birthright citizenship to the children of illegal aliens, Congress can do that through statute like Congress did for American Indians. And so that's going to be the key issue for the Supreme Court to decide if they decide to actually decide the merits of this case. And the Constitution is clear. The text is clear on subject to the jurisdiction. The original public meaning is clear. And I guess it comes down to whether the Supreme Court has the courage to follow the text and the public meaning, original public meaning of the 14th Amendment.
Bingo. He freaking nailed it. Working Dad coming in saying a year fighting here in Ukraine and 14 months in the hospital. Lord Almighty, Thursday. I am getting discharged and medically retired from the military. This is hard. Dude, it is probably one of the hardest adjustments that you have to make when you end up getting medically retired and figuring out, I guess, what like your purpose and your new way in life and all of that stuff is going to be. That was like one of the hardest adjustments for me that ended up like coming was that. And I promise you, brother, you're going to end up getting through it. And I promise you that it's not going to be without its ups and downs. But once you figure out what it is in this world that God wants you to do next, you're still alive. That means your job on earth is not yet complete. So continue to look, in my opinion, for ways to glorify God, and you will find it, and you will get your butt out of the hospital. You will get your butt back into society, and you will get your butt back in the groove and be on your way to doing good things in no time. But just be prepared for those waves that you're going to have to ride, my friend, that you will ride them, right? And it's not going to be easy, but stick it through because you still have work to do. I promise you that. Khan says, I've got questions about what the actual, what that actually entails. Will you be taking calls later? What the 14th Amendment does? Is that what you're talking about, Khan? No, I'm not going to do calls today. I'll do calls tomorrow, but I'm not going to do calls today. I got some backlog stuff that I have to get caught up on. It's starting to nip me in the butt. But the 14th Amendment, just as a whole, right? When you take a look at it and what the Supreme Court decides on, all of that is going to be up to the Supreme Court's ruling, right? Like this is where that opinion of the Supreme Court is going to come into play, right? The Supreme Court can sit there and they can say, you know what? In this case, yes, it's okay. In this case, no, it's not okay. This is what they intended. This is what they intended. This is what they intended. Because again, the 14th Amendment, looking at it, he wasn't wrong when he ended up bringing this up. That it was specifically from a Supreme Court case in like the late 1800s, like the late 1890s, that actually ended up granting birthright citizenship as a whole, as long as you were here on American soil, minus a couple of those exceptions that he ended up giving. And so that within itself is something that they're going to turn around and they're going to take a look at and go, is that being interpreted correctly, or did we screw up somehow? And I got a feeling that with this Supreme Court, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, you know what? This case, no. And you got to remember, like the Supreme Court can't make a ruling on stuff like that unless anybody brings to them a case, right? Like that's their job. And so when things start to get weird, that's where the Supreme Court ends up coming in. And in my opinion, it's freaking great. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of my opinion on the subject. I think the Supreme Court's going to take a look at it. I think they're going to discover that, historically speaking, it's not correct. I'll ask Rob what's up with the NFG shop. I see those questions down there as well. And I may or may not just open up a complete and total separate one for you guys just in the meantime here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, like I said, I got backlog work I got to do. I got things I got to take care of. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for joining me today for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. All right. And peace, love, happiness. God bless, because I'm out of here.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.